Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast brought to you by the Artist Index. And we have another guest, this time a painter, and I'll let him explain that after he introduces himself and spells his name.
Hi, I'm Stephen Remick, Stephen with S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Remick, R-E-M-I-C-K.
And I said you were a painter because my grandmother, when she found out I was going to school for my BFA, she was French Canadian, and she said, "Your grandfather, he paint houses, he never go to school." So you're also a commercial painter, right? Correct?
Yeah, kind of like how an actor and actresses are waiters and waitresses and actors at the same time.
Exactly. Now you come from the Green State, correct?
Yeah, Green Mountain State, Vermont.
Green Mountain State. We can start in the present and work back to the past, or we can start way back to your first memories of when you got bitten by the bug that we've all been bitten by.
Yeah, I don't know. I always hate those stories when you see someone's profile, like, I was always an artist, It's kind of like, oh, geez. But I was.
Yeah.
So cliche.
Yeah.
But, so I was always interested in it. I didn't know anything about art. I just liked to draw and stuff. But just a hick in Vermont, I like to draw.
Now, was it encouraged by your family?
Yeah, it was not to go be a professional artist, but it was definitely, I was rewarded for a talent that the rest of the family didn't seem to have, or at least showed at the moment.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered about who else in the family had the genes, so to speak?
Yeah, kind of. It's there wasn't any artist per se, but my mother's always crafting and stuff. My father was a civil engineer, and so kind of had the engineer side of the brain, and my mother had the more music. She was into music, and so it was kind of, the seeds were there, I guess.
Yeah. Would you say, I've had this conversation with several artists, musicians. Would you say that just the exposure alone of your parents, I don't even want to say predilections, but just what they were interested in, just being exposed to that was part and parcel responsible for you seeking out a career or life in art?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it was that direct. I mean, we weren't we were just out in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, and no culture per se or anything like that. No art history or, no steeped in history of art. I think it just kind of happened, and I ended up wanting to. I liked architecture, so I went to 2 years at Vermont Technical College for architecture, thinking that was something I would be into. And it was funny because most of the kids that started out in architecture like to draw. They think, oh, that's all you have to do to be an architect. And all of a sudden, you got physics classes and statics and strength of materials and all this stuff. I didn't know I was getting into this. So, but a 2-year degree in that was good. It gave me a taste of it, and I worked for a year in the field, and then decided I kind of like rather go more deeper into the arts than architecture.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of being responsible, going to graphic design. At least you can make a living out of it coming out of college, I was thinking. So that's when I kind of happened upon Swain from Vermont. My connection was I had a English professor at Vermont Tech who was like the opposite of everyone else there. It was a very highly technical college, and he was English. And he had known what I was wanting to do, maybe going into the arts. He had interviewed once to be the president of Swain School of Design. and he didn't get the job, but he mentioned it to me. He said, I like this nice little small college down in New Bedford, maybe you've got to check it out when you're looking at RISD,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I ended up down there.
Kind of serendipity, or just those
Yeah.
weird dots in the sky that you connect one to the other, right?
Yeah.
Your experience at Swain now, what decades was this in?
I was 82 to 86.
All right, so you just missed the transition,
Yeah,
or the bloodbath, or whatever the
I
Swain people like to
was
call
in the beginning of the bloodbath. I was a student trustee, a very
Okay.
naive student, voting member of the board of trustees, mind you, as a student,
Uh-huh.
which some of the trustees really didn't like.
Yeah.
And I think I just became a student trustee for a couple of years because I was one of the older freshmen there, coming in from a 2-year degree, and I worked for a year, so I was like maybe 3 years older than the other freshmen. And I think more of the senior upperclassmen were smart not to go into that. I think I got suckered into it somehow.
Now, so you pretty much had a very up close and personal view of what happened for that acquisition.
Yeah, but my memory is really terrible now about that. I don't know if I blotted it out, because I ended up, after 2 years, it was consuming me. Like, it was really interfering with my studies. So I bailed. I served out my terms, and then someone else took over. But like I said, I can't. If someone to ask me details about specific events and stuff, it's just kind of a blur, really, to me right now.
And to me, it's kind of interesting. I mean, my interaction with Swain was between 71 and 75. We had a lot of Swain friends at SMU, Southeastern Massachusetts University.
Same
and
here.
there was like no real rivalry. Although, we had, like I always say, we always thought we were better painters and you guys were way better graphic designers. And then I've heard from so many Swainis that you guys thought the exact opposite.
Well, I had a couple of SMU roommates. We had, like, throughout the years,
Did you?
Yeah.
There's two things. One of them being that I still believe that we're all cut from the same cloth because of Hans Hofmann, because the founder of the department, this was pre-College of Visual and Performing Arts, Ed Tornieri, he was an instructor there at one time, and I believe he was a president. I don't know how long-lived that was. So that's interesting. That's one thing I've always been trying to figure out. That it wasn't so much the differences, but there were a lot of similarities, a lot of interactions that a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big. I think it was just eons going on eons, and they're not just unique to our situation, but the whole fine art versus graphic design is that art, argument. But that's a whole other conversation.
And then it just reminded me that we had Alexander Nesbitt, who was the father of American typography, wandering the halls at SMU in his Nero jacket with his astrological sign necklace. The other thing is, the second part of this is that I'm still amazed at the level of emotion that nearly every single Swain individual that I've interviewed, including faculty, have. They're carrying this torch, this hole in their hearts. I don't know how to describe it, but it really rattled you all psychologically, and I'm saying that in a nice way.
Yeah, I think it was a unique. I think sometimes when you're in the middle of a situation, bad or good, you don't realize you're in the middle of it until some history has passed. and like art movements, I don't, maybe Picasso probably knew every movement he was in, but there's definitely Swain School art movement. You know, I'd say when I see work, and it doesn't matter what style it is, I can kind of see Swain DNA in pieces, and I'll go, "Wait, this looks familiar, or this has some kind of familial tone to it," and then I'll find out there is a path back somehow. You know?
Yeah, you're one of the first painters that I've spoken with that has the exact same point of view, because it's the same thing. Looking at an SMU piece, you just get this like weird kind of you know this hand, you know that this is a hand that was trained by this hand, you know. And the DNA is an interesting word, a term that you chose to use, because when we first started this project, part of it was to trace this DNA to see where does this lead to, because I mean we had connections at SMU with Robert Motherwell, because he was good friends with Ed Tornieri.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, you just don't realize it when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. We're all getting older, so this this podcast series is very, very important, because I think it's a value to younger people or other people who, for whatever need or whatever purpose, whatever reason, whatever they walk away with is good, you know. I'm seeing one of your pandemic pieces behind you on your easel.
Oh yeah.
And let's talk about that and work our way back and just talk about you and your art, and all the things that are in your head right now.
Yeah, well, this again, how I stumbled on art. I kind of stumbled on that. It's just I didn't never consider myself a painter of contemporary times on purpose, or you know, mostly I'm a landscape painter or abstracts based on landscape. And lately, the past 4 years have creeped into my art a bit. I think, like some people, maybe unwillingly. It's just I just found myself kept going back as I was trying to paint some landscapes that I'm doing. These images that I've been seeing on social media, and, you know, pandemic, but specifically related to COVID-19 right now, just kept interfering with me in the studio. So I said, okay, let me just confront it and see what I can do. And I don't consider myself a portrait painter at all, but I did something very roughly first. I saw this nurse from Italy, and she was just obviously this beautiful young woman whose face was temporarily disfigured from all these, you know, masks and protection gear and everything, and that's so important to that age group, you know, their looks and everything. And she was just took selfies, and you see all these people doing that, and just the look in their eyes. So I just said, okay, I'm going to try to just do a quick portrait off these online images. And first one I did, I painted over now, but it was just like a quick, trying to do like a, you know, like the German expressionist paintings, you know, very guttural and just doing a very quick, you know, exaggerated colors and stuff. And it worked okay, but then I started fine tuning the next one a little bit and working from an iPad and just trying to get a little more accuracy in the expressions and the eyes and everything. And then the next one got a little more fine tuned. So that kind of snowballed into, I might have a half a dozen of them now, but I'm not sure.
Well, I find them quite powerful, and one of the it came out of my head. That's why I was like doing a quick search here. But they remind me of the Fayum mummy.
That's funny you
portraits.
did. I'm glad you saw that, because I totally the Coptic painting art. You know, I totally did the same search after the fact. I was like, well, my wife said, "Well, these look like those Egyptian paintings."
Yeah.
I went, yeah, I know, like the eyes and stuff, because they're a little folk arty. You know, they're not like I said, I'm not trying to wasn't trying to at first render something perfectly, but so the eyes are a little bit larger.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of going where it took me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm really glad you picked that up. Also, just the size and the cropping of it, but then the expressions and
Full frontal. Yeah.
yeah. So so I've been searching a lot online for images that kind of fit that match that. But I'd like to bring this up too, and I'm not sure that whole I'm not sure if they're great paintings or if it's a great image. Like you'll see someone will take a picture of their baby and what a wonderful painting, or what a wonderful photograph, or a puppy, or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it the artist or what they're taking, what they're displaying? And if you can combine the two, it's wonderful. It's like it's powerful because it's a face and the look on the face.
Yeah.
But how much of it is the artist doing that, or how much of it is just because it's there?
Well, this was sort of a transitory thing. I mean, somebody asked me once at an opening about, my process and all that other stuff. We all get asked the same questions. And the first thing that popped in my head was the character, I think it was Roy, played by Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when he starts playing with his mashed potatoes. And he has no idea why he's doing it. And I think that happens. I think we become an antenna, a conduit, I don't know what the hell you want to call it.
I've always likened it to that, not knowing what you're doing. And it's funny because when I was younger, a lot of people said I look like Richard Dreyfuss.
Actually, I could kind of see that, yeah. If you put the glasses on and some...
Well, it's funny because it happened a lot. And I'm like, I don't see that at all. But then I would relate that same story about the mashed potatoes and like, I'm doing that, and doing, like, we're all doing this thing that, not sure why, but you're compelled to do it. Some inner driving force.
Yeah, and then it takes you don't know what you're doing, and then someone, as Ernst Gombrich, the famous art historian, would say, then the viewer comes in, and then the viewer sees something and knows exactly what the hell you were doing, and you're looking at them going, that's kind of cool, because I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. And they could, they tell you about your mood at the time, your emotions. It's even some backstory kind of thing that you're just sort of slack-jawed listening to them, So there's something to this. Most of these women are European.
Yeah, because it started, so there's the images just technically online that was flooded more with their images at first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, and then I started becoming conscious, being, socially aware, going, geez, it's all, Caucasian women right now and women,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, let me find men and people of color and all that. But it's just, right now, the images that are kind of aligning with what I'm looking for are these right now, and I'll just let it happen as it happens, But it's also funny. It's like, it's not meant to be a sexist thing, but it's when you see as I see a woman looking like that, staring into a camera, it's more powerful than a man. I've found some male nurses and doctors images doing that, but they're more angry, or they're more pissed off, or something. These women have gone through those stages already and come to acceptance, it looks like to me. Yeah. Where men were just pissed off. It's like,
well, yeah. I can imagine that. And then there's the other aspect of it too. As you were speaking, all I could think of was the pietà. I used to tell my art history students, people look at that like the Statue of Liberty or the Mona Lisa, and they look at it as like, yeah, I've seen it a million times. It's like, yeah, you've never seen it. You've looked at it, but you've never seen it. Look at that woman's face. Look at her face. There's a prophecy that was made 33 years, if we go with the narrative, 33 years back, that said she was going to supersede her son. Okay, he was going to be given up as a sacrifice. And now this is the moment. And she's holding on to her child, her man-child. Yeah. And the look on her face is like the most incredible thing. These women, and it's not a sexist thing, because again, motherhood, you can't take that out.
Yeah, I think there's a motherhood is definitely going back to a DNA thing, yeah, the motherhood, I think they know what, they just know.
Yeah, they're there to nurture, where the man is there to conquer this evil,
Yeah,
to set it back outside the door where it belongs, and that's why they're angry, because they feel, well, let's use the I word, they feel impotent,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's funny, yeah. And when I was thinking that too, I was thinking about who was the sculptor, Maillot, or something. He said, the French sculptor, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Maillot or Maillet. He sculpted. Someone wanted him to do a commission, and he said, "Okay, as long as it's a seated woman or a standing woman, or no, a reclining woman or a seated woman, that's all I
yeah,
do."
yeah,
And I said, "Okay, fine.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
just be a crazy artist and do what I want to do."
yeah, because standing women are kind of hard because their ankles break.
Yeah.
It's a harder piece to work on, you
Yeah.
know. That's why all the Romans always had the guys leaning on something, because, you know, they needed 3 points there, or else it was going to snap at the ankles. But so what have you learned from this series of these healthcare workers, of these Florence Nightingales, of whatever you want to call them, these mothers?
I don't know yet because it's too new still. These are all less than a month old right
How
now.
many have you done so far?
I've done 5 or 6 of them. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, and I don't know if what I've learned yet. It's yeah, I don't know.
Does it take you, I'm finding a lot of similarities. It's kind of wonderfully nice in our thought processes, but does it take a while for things to bubble up in your head? In other words, you've got a piece of work that you're like, yeah, whatever. And then you look at it like 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years later, and you're going, oh my God, I did that. How come I
Oh,
didn't like it? How come I didn't notice
yeah,
this? How come I didn't see
yeah,
it? You
yeah,
know?
yeah. It's funny. It's like that happens daily. You know, you think you have a great session in the studio. We go to bed at midnight, 1 a.m, get up and have a coffee, go down to the studio, go, what the hell was I thinking? That
I
happens
should have
more
stopped
often.
3 hours ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more immediate for me than that, but yeah, and sometimes, yeah, definitely, especially if I'm digging through some art from college, I'm going, man, I should be way better now. These are really good from college. I have some really great landscape paint. Like I just started going plein air painting a few years ago,
Hmm.
and that's how we learned how to paint, from life, 30 years ago, 40 years, whatever it was. And um, I kind of came back into it. Okay. In 2016, I was like gangbusters. But then I looked at some of my paintings from college or summers during college. I'm going, my God, these are really nice little paintings. And I should be better than that now.
Do you
And
think
I don't
it's,
know if it's just because in college you just don't have a care in the world really compared to what you do
or you
now.
just didn't know any better?
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, that's another thing. I try not to overthink things. When you brought up the Alpha portraits,
Fayum, yeah, the Fayum, yeah, the Al Fayum.
um, I when I realized what I was doing, they were very similar. It kind of concerned me because I don't want to start doing that consciously.
Well, one of the things I got right off the bat, um, and I think anybody with a set of eyes can pick up on, regardless if it was you or anybody else who executed these pieces, is these women have no breath left. They are just totally collapsed
Oh yeah,
emotionally, and they're just a
no,
shell.
there's no filter there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, they've
the
seen it all. It's
yeah.
just, and this pandemic. I mean, philosophers must be having a heyday, and I don't mean
Well,
that
that's
in any
yeah.
crass sense of the word.
Well, another thing that keeps I was going to stop doing them. Then I saw these images of the people just being so selfish and going, if I get it, I'll be fine. And then some governor was saying, well, we got hospital bed, we got enough hospital beds for people. I'm going, wait a minute. These are the people that are going to be seeing you, and this is what you're putting them through. That's just one drop in the bucket of how this is going to affect people. So I went, okay, I'm going to do another portrait. It's like, there's no empathy, no sense. I mean, we better not get it too much into this, but
Well, but that is Milt Brightman, because now you just lit up my head about Milt Brightman and his crowd scenes. I don't know if he's
yeah.
started to migrate towards that, but I mean, these like he calls them the Rubenesque piles of flesh, and that's what you
opening
see.
day at Fenway, and
Yeah, exactly. And the whatever of the Ozarks where these people are cheek to jowl in the pool is like,
yeah, I know.
okay. You had a short foray that I'm aware of. I don't know everything about you, but into abstract. How did that work out?
Oh, that was couple of years long foray into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I that was the hardest thing for me to do. I was painting landscapes, getting back into this was maybe early 2000s, 1999, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super clunky. My wife and I have two kids, and that they're adults now. And at the time, we were deep into parenthood. But as they were getting a little older, I was feeling the urge to get back in the studio, and hadn't painted for a while. And my paintings were just clunky. And I was doing some landscapes, and I found myself starting at areas where I liked, like horizon lines and edges of things. And then I was really bored with the rest of the painting and going, why freaking bother with this? So it took a couple of months to lose the image. It was really hard for me to literally make a non-objective painting. The hardest thing. You think it'd be easy, just throw some paint on, be Jackson Pollock, whatever.
No.
I was trying to do it logically, though,
Yeah.
And it was had to come from something. So I started repeating the edges where they happen and going around the canvas, and all of a sudden they started turning into Rothko-esque, shape, floating squares and things.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasted for a few years, but they're kind of minimalistic, and minimalism, you kind of can paint yourself into a corner. You can start reducing a bit much. And then I did a hard break after a few years of that, and challenged myself to start to see if I could, paint from landscapes again. Recognize the images.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because with the abstract, as soon as you put the horizon line there, you got landscape. I mean, you can't get away from it.
Yeah. That's all I see with Rothko.
Yeah. So I get into a thing where I try to paint nothing, and that's it becomes quite difficult.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the opposite end of the thing. I had some sort of a cathartic moment back in December, and yet I haven't had a chance to get to easel. It's right there.
Yeah.
But it's just too many other things with this show and work and family and so on and so forth. But it's also too, I think, probably an excuse, because I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you go into periods where it isn't that you have nothing to say, or that you're too busy, or it's just not there?
Oh yeah.
It's not like you're not hungry, so why bother? Why eat just to eat if you're not hungry?
Yeah. I used to be longer periods. I sometimes I went 3 to 6 months, 30 to 6 months not doing it. But then I realized it's almost like an equation for me. It's like, let's say you have this much output or this much energy. And sometimes it'll happen in the course of a month. I'll be prolific and do a ton of stuff in the studio. Or like in 2016, I did a couple months of plein air painting. Ran a small house painting business, back to the painters paintings. And I'd throw my easel in the truck and play hooky in the afternoon somewhere as I was checking on my jobs. I used to have employees. And I just start banging out some landscapes. And sometimes I do 3 a day. And so it's like real concentrated and tons of work. And then I deplete myself and I wouldn't do anything for a couple months. But I realized when I got back in the studio, I was thinking about things that I didn't know I was thinking about, because, it started to shift, started finding a new path somewhere. And with me, literally, I was painting paths, and
Well, yeah, Destruction Brook seems to be
oh, that's a wonderful, yeah.
That seems to be like your go-to, your motif, your whatever,
Well, it's there, my window, back window. We bought Destruction Brook Woods, so literally, we're right there.
What do you think it is about that path? Is it
just
primal? Like Robert Frost.
It must be. Well, that's another thing about Robert Frost, is in other descriptions of my work, when I did the hard break from abstract, I always enjoyed Frost's poems and his, not just the poetry, but his New England vernacular, you know, and I felt growing up in Vermont, I used to just go in the woods a lot, just as a kid, just with my BB gun or in the winter going sledding or snowshoeing or whatever. So I was always connected to the woods. So I think here, when we moved here from New Bedford, we were looking for a house to build. This connected. I knew the paths were out here, and that was the location. That was this main selling point for moving here. And I think that brought me back to my childhood, probably. And then when I did the hard break, I thought, okay, I want to be to art like Frost was to poetry and literature. And I remember his poem "Mending Wall" about stone walls and borders and
good
like
fences make good neighbors.
Yeah. And I was looking for subject matter and literally tripping over stone walls out back here. So I have a whole series of stone wall paintings, and I just used black and white paint. Just kept it en grisaille, and then it turned. That was in the late winter or so, and then spring came and green started coming everywhere. So I started. That was just one thing led to another, and then
yeah. Now, one of the toughest things from landscape painting that a lot of people don't realize is, and it's also great exercise, great lessons for painting students, is it's fleeting. I mean, that cloud's not going to stay there. That light is going to change. I mean, you can feel the light changing if you become conscious of what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
That light is constantly changing. And have you had any moments while you've been plein air painting?
Oh, all the time. We go. Well, I'll go. Well, first of all, as a student, the best time to go out is an overcast day. That's the best time because it's more or less constant,
right,
throughout the day. But I'll have things of, oh yeah, I love this where this cloud is, blah blah blah, and then 10 minutes later, oh no, I like this better. I liked it better before, but And I'm always amazed at painters throughout history, like these guys where you got people, you got landscapes, people to people with things, and how they get the expressions and all. It just, I can't fathom it sometimes. Like there's millions of them, but like John Singer Sargent, a lot of people don't think much of him just because he was popular and he painted, a lot of the elite artists, I think, kind of think, he was a painter, making money painting. But man,
he's a virtuoso though.
Especially those watercolors, because, but just going back to the difficulty of painting the moment, a moment is a moment and then it's gone. So there's that ability to bring a million moments together in one piece. That's the hard part.
Yeah. What do you think of the South Coast's creative community in general? I mean,
I think
compared to go back to Swain days, and then as it evolved to this point now.
Well, yeah, it's incredible. I'm part of South Coast Artists and Gallery X, and I'm a board member on South Coast Artists, and it's a great community, and the whole, and beyond just South Coast Artists, the whole arts, and social media, of course, has almost 100% to do with how we're all connected and how we all get together now. And one other thing too with Swainie's and the area was Kroll's art. When Kate Levin took over Kroll's and started showing all the Swain alums, and then broadening that to UMass, and a lot of us, I know a few of my friends my age group, started painting more because they saw other people painting, and then we started. Plus, it was easier for us to paint because our kids are all grown up, and we're not, we can maybe focus more time on our art. So I saw a lot of us Swainies blossom in our 50s, 50s into their 60s, after having careers maybe away from art or paralleling it a bit here and there. But yeah, I think it's a great community. Of course, there's rivalries within it and within groups, but I think I haven't lived elsewhere than Vermont in a small community, but I think if you put a you take a map of the map out and you put a 30-mile radius anywhere in the country, you'd probably be, except for some greater metropolitan areas, you'd be hard pressed to find that many artists concentrated in an area as ours is.
Yeah. I mean, the Hatch Street Studios is, I guess the number to stick with now is 65. That's just one building.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
I mean, the South Coast artists, there's over maybe 130 in the group between the towns of Tiverton and Little Compton, Dartmouth, Westport. Not just people on the tour. See if that happens this year, but just the members who have signed up to be a member. Yeah, it's just. I don't know if it has a lot to do with Swain and UMass and RISD just being in the same general area, and
possibly because Don Wilkinson was and I was speaking, and he said that Elizabeth, his wife Elizabeth, had asked him what was the difference between New Bedford and Fall River. What was the major difference? And I believe he said it's the Swain School. The Swain School was like a driving force. We had a school of art. They didn't. They had an artist community, more of a traditional kind of a thing, like on Belmont Street with the Fall River Art Association and that kind of thing. But the Swain was definitely a presence that goes back a lot of years. And the Saturday morning art classes, I think, maybe it's not a good analogy, but the Saturday morning art classes infected a lot of young people. There are people our age and older who didn't go into the arts, but one of their fondest memories of growing up in the city was the Saturday morning art classes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I wasn't familiar with those really, just as a student at Swain.
Yeah.
I know once in a while we'd have a faculty member. We'd do like a figure session on a Saturday for 3 hours or something, just to, chip in $5 or $10, and half a dozen of us were there in the Crapel building. But, I've heard of other people taking those Saturday morning art classes.
What are your if you could look into the crystal ball, what do you think the future for you as a painter and the arts in general, especially now? I mean, this pandemic, we're all waiting for the other shoe to drop. People are saying, "Oh, this has been enough," but you don't tell something natural when it's done. It's done when it's done.
Yeah.
When's the fat lady going to sing?
I know, it's terrible. It's like, everyone's trying to do their art shows online and, doing the best they can with that. But there's such a disconnect with that. One way, it's nice to be able to get it out there. I don't know. I think it's just going to be tough. It's going to be, you'd think there'd be more art sales online. I've had strong online sales over the past couple of years, but the past couple of months been slow. People started picking up again. My wife's been selling online lately. I think like everything else is going to be, as much as you like Amazon or not, there's going to be more of that, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a wild west with online art sales. There's so many venues out there. There's like Saatchi Online, which is, one of the more established art go-to places. But there's so many now. It's just really tough to figure out who to lasso.
One of the newest contenders is art storefronts, and they seem to be doing it from a completely different viewpoint. Art is a business, and you've got to invest in it. It's about $3,000, and that's the easy part. If you've got the money, the hard part is the devotion to it, the hours that have to be put into it.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just got to be savvy with computer skills and all that, and marketing. That's why I joined South Coast Artists in the first place years ago, was the marketing part. Just getting, I was weak in that, and wanted to rely on other people. And here I am, a board member on it now. I said, okay, I'm just going to pay my $35 and you guys do all the work.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the middle of it.
Well, let's go on that. We're almost towards the end of the session, but let's go towards that, the marketing aspect of it. I mean, how much can anybody possibly do? I mean, if you're a painter, I mean, like, at one point we used to joke that like 50% of my time is marketing myself, 50% of my time is painting. And then it got really, really serious. It's like, damn, I'm lucky if I get 15% of my time at my easel. The rest of it is marketing myself. And then it's like, for what? I'm not getting any results.
Yeah, I know.
And then people just give it up, you know?
Yeah. It's like, you know, when you're young and naive, you think, oh, my work will just sell itself, you know, and maybe for just like, maybe for 1% it is, you know, but you got to, you know, you just got to be the Gagosian, you know, type of painter. I don't know. It's just, I really don't know. I'm not into, I think sometimes when people just market themselves so much, you're kind of preaching to the choir. You got a bunch of other poor artists you're marketing to. You got to find your right mailing list, you know, and,
well, it's like openings, right? I mean, it's always like the same 20 people, and they're all painters.
That's kind of what happens, and it's just I just don't want to put people through that. It's just there's a point of looking narcissistic or business-like and responsible to you know, that you got to find that fine line between, you know, just going me, and, you know, here I'm a real artist. I want, you know, support me so I can keep doing it. You know?
Yeah. And then too, I mean, I've had conversations with others where there are some people who are selling, you know, not necessarily in this area. We see it, you know, like across the country or whatever, and they're selling very well, and you're going, okay, it's not jealousy or anything like that, but what, you know?
Yeah.
And then here, look at this guy. This guy's starving. He's like, this guy is worth like, you know, way more money.
Yeah, I know. It's all, yeah. It's just a game sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like who buys your stuff, and then there's the sheep following. It's the same with anything, you know. There's a couple of people, and then there's the followers.
Yeah, so if you sold a piece to Richard Dreyfuss, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I have actually sold a couple pieces to a couple online. They can be, you know, anonymous. So,
yeah.
And I've had a couple of repeat sales with some decent, well-known people, but
yeah,
not, you know, I don't feel like saying any names. But
I understand. Yeah,
but it's you know, like I said, online you can connect with people you can't in a local gallery. It's just, I mean, you don't know who's going to be looking at your work, so you better put out the good stuff and say the right things about it.
Do you think there are enough people and enough talent in this area for somebody with a business wherewithal that's not a brokerage?
Oh, yeah, this is like definitely an untapped potential in here. I mean, we're oil fields sitting just below the surface ready to tap here.
Yeah,
in a green kind of way.
I like that analogy, because I always, you know, when I was doing my wine show with my friend Mike Daigle, you know, we were called the Wine Guys. So I used to do all the research and everything, and just something called the Wine Lake, which is all the unsold wine or bad vintages, or in some cases, some of the finest vintages ever. They have a bumper crop, and they realize, oh, this is great, but we can't bottle all this because it'll screw up our pricing. So they throw away half of it to maintain their price levels. Yeah. So you have all this lake. Imagine this physical area where all this paint is, this wine is. And I always imagined that there's got to be an art lake, you know, where there's like something from a dystopian movie where, you know, you're in this warehouse and there's like racks after rack after rack. I mean, it just goes on forever of paintings.
Better Gallery X. There's probably a bunch of them there. I mean, we can't go through this without mentioning Gallery X. I mean, yeah. We're just, I know there's, I mean, in this space, you don't see the rest of my studio here. Mm-hmm. I'm a hoarder of our own, you know, any artist is a hoarder of their own paintings if they haven't sold them all. Yeah. And they're just stacked by size, and, you know, just, yeah.
And
I know, I don't want to brag about this, but I know there's there's places where people would appreciate them, you know. It's
well, I mean,
how you get it. there.
In the community, you're probably one of the more successful salesmen, or you have. I mean, you have done okay, as they say.
Well, I've done okay over the years, but I'm almost 60, and it's not an overnight success, and I'm still house painting. I'm not. It's becoming every year, knock on wood. Hopefully, this year is becoming a slightly more higher percentage of my income, our art, my wife and myself. It's going in the right direction. But we've been talking about curves a lot lately. It's not going exponentially in the right direction right now, but we're it's helping. But by no way am I able to just sell my truck and throw away my house painting brushes. Although I was using those when I was painting my large abstracts. That was good.
That was one thing. Steve, this is by no means the last podcast with you, and I generally try to tell everybody that's on the show that this is not a one and done. That everybody's much more than just a page in this book that we're this wherever this book is. Thank you. Some people
when you first contacted me, it's like I don't have much to say, but it's like you just don't like you said, it's just a regular conversation. So.
That's all it is. Some people have their own agenda, because they're tight that way. They want to get all the bio and artist statement stuff out of the way with. But it generally is conversation, and it triggers things off in my mind that when I mention them, hopefully it snaps back to you, and then that's what conversations are all about. We need to get a coffee sponsor.
Yeah.
We're going to have coffee while we're doing this.
Nice coffee. This was.
So the final question, Steve, is this. How would you like to be remembered? If we're going ahead in time, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I think anyone, you just want to be remembered as a good, responsible parent and a loving parent and a spouse, and have your art be taken seriously and improved upon by others. Like looking at someone's art and carrying it forward. I'd really love to have my art just outlast me by eons.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for being on the show. And this is Ron Fortier again, closing out this latest episode of the In Focus podcast with Steve Remick, painter. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be the artist you believe you are, and let's take care of each other out there.